Palestinian academic, author of a variety of books on politics and religion in the Middle East. He joins us from Amman. Doctor, thank you so much indeed for your time. You remember we were talking just 2 days ago, and you rightly began by saying, look, none of this is new. The issues are old. But can I ask you again, which I've been trying to get through this idea, this theme, and get an analysis from you about the themes may be old, but what about the nature and the changing nature of the conflict and what it is now compared to previous ones?
Well, indeed, as you rightly said it, the conflict has been going on for decades. But yes, of course, we are in different times. We have a different generation. And I think the most important thing is that this uprising, if I may call it an uprising, comes after the utter failure of every peace initiative with Israel. So this new generation, the generation of my sons and my children and my grandchildren, is waking up to say to us, the older generation, what were you talking about? It's impossible. We cannot coexist peacefully with people who want to eliminate us. Because now, after what happened in Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, people realized from the very north of Palestine to the very south, from the water to the river, from the sea to the river, they realized that the society in Israel, the Jewish society in Israel, is increasingly becoming fanatical, religiously fanatical. They want to take the mosques, they want to take the houses, they want to take the land. In other words, there will be no more Palestine or Palestinians. So what do you do in this case? In this case, you have to explode in anger. And this is what we are seeing.
Yeah, okay, so that issue of fanaticism. Human Rights Watch says that Israel has created an apartheid-like system in its treatment of Palestinians. If that's the case, then surely it's incumbent upon Israel to make concessions if there is going to be any sort of peace. And when you talk about fanaticism, you look at the recent election results, 4 of them, right split down the middle between right-wing, which seems to be going more right-wing in Israel, and the rest of the political class. So where's the hope that Israel's government, of whatever formation it is, would be ready to make any sort of peace?
I like the term incumbent upon it. You know, we're not talking here about a law-abiding state. Israel is a violator of international law, and it has been violating international law for 8 decades. And therefore, it doesn't feel obliged to do anything unless it is forced to do it. And I'd like to remind everybody that in 2012, by the way, this is probably the 4th such huge explosion of confrontation. We had the 2008, 2009, then we had 2012, 2014, and now 2021. These are the major ones. In 2012, because there was a decent man ruling Egypt called Mohammed Morsi, the Americans sent Hillary Clinton begging everybody to stop the fight, and they forced the Israelis, they threatened the Israelis to enter into a truce with Hamas with very favorable conditions. Unfortunately, today, there is no decent people ruling in the Arab world. There is nobody to force Israel to become incumbent upon it, to be obliged to do anything. And the Americans and the European Union are just concerned, but no more than concerned.
You know what, we could talk endlessly about the grand ideas of conflict resolution, but I want to bring you back to the very human level. When people around the world see scenes of violence between Israel and Palestinians over the course of years, they may just think, okay, I see trouble. They may not understand exactly what the Palestinians are protesting about. And we, again, a couple of days ago spoke about when Palestinians rise up, they rise up not just for that moment, but for decades of oppression. So can you give us a personal account of what it's like to be a Palestinian living in an occupied territory or in the Gaza Strip?
Well, it's you're living in your country, you're living on your land, in your home, or probably in your cubicle in a refugee camp where you have been forced to live for probably a generation or two, and you see all these thieves around you waiting for the right moment to finish you off. It's a very uncertain, very uncomfortable situation. And I think this is what motivates the young generation to take action. Because the older generation, some of the people in the older generation, thought that probably this is the reality that we have to settle for. This is the status quo we have to recognize and accept. But no, the young generation is saying, enough is enough. No more. We cannot do this anymore. And you see, Palestinians, no matter where they happen to be, whether they are in Lud or Nazareth, Hebron, Nablus, Ramallah, Jerusalem, or Gaza, they all know perfectly well the history of their parents and the history of their grandparents. They know their ancestry. They know they have a right to this land. They know that the Zionists are thieves, invaders, racists who came to take the land from them. And therefore, this will keep the fire burning, and this will keep the enthusiasm within their hearts. And when the moment comes, there will be liberation.
Dr. Azzam Tamimi, thank you so much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it.